Hello and welcome to Mind Gourmet. My name is Nina Kaiser. I'm the co-founder of Mind Gourmet and I am, as always, your host today. My today's guest is business and clarity coach Robyn Chavarie. Welcome, Robyn. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me, Nina. I'm so excited to do this interview with you.
Me too. We've been thinking about that for a while and I'm really happy that we can make it happen today. And before we start, for everybody a little note, Robyn and I both don't know where those little weird noises come from. So just in case you hear them also on the recording of this interview, just know that this is kind of a heavenly intervention.
Yeah, we tried to make it go away. It just wouldn't happen. So it's fine.
Yeah. So with that said, can you tell us a little more about yourself, who you were and what brought you to who you are today, everything that you like to share so that our listeners can get to know you better?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually from a fairly small city in New Brunswick, Canada. And so I grew up just kind of like everybody else, I guess, and, experimenting with what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Ended up starting working at a very young age and just fell in love with the fact that I could kind of create my own way and work hard and make money and, have that kind of freedom at a young age. And so I met my husband when we started working together right after high school. We went on a crazy adventure and moved down to Florida about 12 years ago with our vehicle packed to the gills and our traveling cats, and drove all the way down to Florida. And we had no idea what we were doing, but we've built quite a life down in Florida. And so it's really been an amazing adventure that way. But we both come from call center backgrounds. And of course, no one really, wakes up and as a little kid says, I want to, be in call centers and in the corporate world when you're younger. So no one really says that, but, it did a lot for me. Like I really worked my way through all the different positions and learned a lot doing that. And I guess it was probably about 3 years ago now, a little more than that. I was kind of in a space where like we had just gotten married, bought a house. Everything was amazing with my career. Like everything was just kind of there. And it was almost like I've achieved all my goals, like all my big goals, like that you set in your 20s. And you're just kind of like, I have all these major life things. And then I hit them all. And I was like, oh, well, now what? Like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
And so I was really just craving more. Like I had hit the good career. We were making good money, bought the house, got married, had the 2 dogs, the white picket fence without the picket fence. And so I really was just kind of wanting more. Like I wanted to make more of an impact. And I felt like I was, just looking for that like real connection and that fulfillment in my work that I didn't really feel like I had. And so I just started looking, and I ended up, I started in a network marketing company, had quite a bit of success with that, but I felt like I was showing up in a way that was really unaligned. Mm-hmm. So I learned all the old fashioned ways of like how to market and just put yourself out there. And I was it got to the point where I almost lost myself in my business because I thought I had to show up the way that everyone else was. And I thought I had to be a certain type of person to make that business happen. And so when I really looked at things and said, like, this isn't who I am anymore, my whole business fell apart because I stopped the like driving, forcing, pushing, hustle kind of energy.
Yes.
And it kind of just all imploded. And that was fine because that was that was what I had to go through to kind of find where I am now. So I ended up working with a life coach for a while, really getting clear on like who I am and mm-hmm. what I wanted out of life, and how I was showing up in the world was, with the people pleasing tendencies, and I was hiding my true self, and I was stuck in this masculine, like hustle, push, force, drive kind of energy. And I was like that in my whole life, with my career, with my workouts, like everything. And I had to kind of learn just to take a step back and like how to enjoy life a little bit, but at the same time, show up with my goals in a way that was really aligned and like create even more more magic in my life. And so realizing that what I loved about working in my network marketing was working with women and helping them dream bigger and helping them really see like what was possible for them. And they weren't stuck in the narrative of, you know, grow up, go to school, get good grades so you can get into college and get that dream job that you're going to work at for the next 40 years. Like, that's just not reality anymore, but it's still the pattern that we're taught. And so it's like, there's more out there for you. There's whatever you want to create is available for you. And so that's really what I try to, you know, work with my clients on. It's like seeing what's possible, but like really allowing them to give themselves permission to like step into what it is that they want and like let go of all the narratives and stories that they've been, you know, grown up with. So I kind of created my own business from all of that and just working with women and you know, step by step and investing myself and hiring my own coaches. And that's really what led me to bringing in the business side of it. I think it was always a clarity thing for me, even if I didn't know that's what it was, which is funny because I didn't have the clarity to see that that's what I'm good at, but just helping women
often, I think.
Yeah. And so that's really what I do.
Ourselves. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But yeah, so that's really what I do is like I help women see what they know is deep down and in their intuition, but they've just quieted that voice for so long they don't know how to listen to it anymore. And so really getting back into that space, which is, it's incredible, like just massive transformations and in a couple sessions, it's really fun. So yeah, so that's kind of what led me to where I am now. And I still live in Florida. I love it there. You know, the dog and the 2 fur babies and running my business and still, you know, building it in my 9 to 5, which is incredible to be able to do that with, you know, the steady income support and having that flexibility to be able to do that. So yeah, that's, I guess, a little bit about me.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because we come from so different backgrounds, but when I hear you speak about what made you desire your changes, what happens that pushed you into a direction of change, I can very much relate. And change is a phenomenon that I'm just so fascinated by, not only the fact that it happens to us or that we desire it, but also what it actually is itself and how we deal with it. And there's one interesting like side note on this, that so often we tend to think, when I have my better future, I'll be able to enjoy life. When this is happening, I'm enjoying life. And in some way we give away our power to change ourselves. And so that's what I would like to ask you first now. How do you see that thing around, when I have this and that, then I'll be happy?
Yeah. So this was actually something that I was like full blown into that space. So I was constantly a goal setter. I actually just had a call with my coach the other night where I was telling her I have like spreadsheets from like the last 6 years of my goals, like this goal by this date with this number. And so I've always been that kind of person that is like, I have big goals, I have big dreams. I'm very like, I love to know what's coming next. And I'm always got that driven, like, I want things to be bigger. But when you're coming at your goals from a space of, I'm unhappy now and I want to change something, and like, I can't be happy until that happens, then you never create it, because you carry those patterns of whatever it is that's making you unhappy and dissatisfied. And whatever like negative stuff that you're carrying with you, it doesn't fix itself when you create the goal. Like when you achieve the goal, you know, you still end up there. And I was actually just speaking with someone the other day who was like moved to a totally different city, and was like, you know, I thought things would be better and now I'm even more miserable. And I'm like, we carry that with us, right? So the happiness, the satisfaction, the feelings of accomplishment, the feeling of just being grounded and whole and who we are, like that comes regardless of our circumstances, regardless of, you know, our finances, the state of our relationship, how much we weigh, right? So they always say, like, you can't hate your body into losing weight, right? Like you can, but it's not like a long-term solution. You end up just as miserable. And so it's, you know, that really shows up everywhere. So if you're not happy with your finances and you're frustrated and thinking about money all the time, and scared about like your debt and things like that, like you can't get to the space where you are satisfied with your finances, because you'll never be, right? And it's the same with our weight. It's the same with our business goals. It's the same with our relationships. And when it's so counterintuitive, because we're like, well, I don't like the way things are right now, but like we create that happiness and that peace and that groundedness and that wholeness feelings from just being who we are and like being in that space and that energy every day. And that's when we create the better life. So it's not about like, you know, well, I'm just peaceful no matter what, and I never want to create something better. You can still create something better, but from like this amazing grounded space every day. And so when you approach your goals from that space, you actually create even better ones. And you actually enjoy the process. Like you have fun while you're doing it. You feel like yourself and you feel whole. And that's what you're trying to do. And when you have a goal, you're trying to create a feeling that yes. goal is going to give you. You can create that feeling right now. You can create that in your mind. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, so it's so important to like, it's so counterintuitive, but like do it backwards and it works way better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am convinced about this too. And I truly believe change comes from the inside out. Yeah. And I think there's another belief about change, and that is that we have to work really hard to achieve our dreams, to accomplish our changes. But I remember you said it's not necessary to buy into this thing. So change can be easy, right? Or easier, at least, than we think.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So this is interesting because like I mentioned before, I was very stuck in like the masculine energy of like, just work hard and it'll come, and do more and put more in and give and drive, force, hustle, push, all of this. And yes, like there's no question that action gets you results. Like there's no question. You can't just sit on your couch and meditate and wait for $1 million to show up. Like that's not how it works, right? And people get so kind of stuck in it's like way on one side or way on the other, and we haven't found that balance. And so what happens is when we get into that space, like I mentioned before, of like feeling whole and peaceful and grounded in who we are, we know what our goals are, and we're just like this incredible energy that we show up with each and every day. When you take inspired action from that space, you achieve so much more by taking one action than you do in like literally working yourself to the bone from a space of like desperation or anxiety, or that like, and that's exactly what I experienced. So when I was working my network marketing, it was that constant, like, I've got to achieve this goal. I got to go, I got to do it. And I was like staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning and like messaging and all of this. And like now in my business, I'm still working full time, and I can put in like, you know, an hour or so a day, or like show up and do a video once a day and things like that. And like, but because I'm in this space of alignment and I know how to get myself there before I take action, I get way better results. And my business has been just exploding in the last like 6 months because of that, because I've been more aligned and I've been able to show up in that space. And so it's not about doing more work. Like, and we don't believe that it can be that easy. Like, we just don't believe that we can get it without working ourselves to the bone. And so we don't take the time to step back and really just like take care of ourselves. Because when we show up as the highest version of ourselves with that energy and just do that one inspired action, or there's 2 inspired actions each day, like the shift is just incredible. And it took me a long time to really like work through those beliefs of that I don't have to kill myself to like make this work. It took a lot. So yeah.
So if we think of change and the fact that I believe most of us desire change, either because we don't like something and we want to have it gone from our lives, or really want to move towards something. And isn't it often that when we really start to go into the direction of what we want to, we run into our own huge resistance? We suddenly find many reasons why it's not possible, why we are starting tomorrow, why this, why that. What do you think? Why does it happen? I mean, I think it cannot be because we don't want our dreams bad enough.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's not because we don't want it bad enough. It's almost like we were ingrained this way. Like you think about, so resistance comes up because it's like the way our brains were made. You think about a caveman, right? Like we're so in this pattern, like we know what's safe, we know what's comfortable, right? Yeah. And so our brain, change is the unknown, it's scary, it's bad, right? So we like to basically be able to run on like low energy patterns. This is why like when we drive to work and we just show up and we're like, oh my God, I don't even remember the drive, right? Like our brain likes to go into that low energy pattern, doesn't have to think, right? But then when you take a different route, your brain's like, where am I going? What's happening? Like I don't know where I am. Right. And that the same thing happens when we try to create something better for ourselves. So like that is something that I think so many of us don't expect, that it's going to like fight us so much. And we feel that it should be an easy process. We should just be like, oh, I want to create this incredible thing. Right. But it's like breaking down the patterns of what we've been so used to and what we've been so ingrained, and just knowing that like our brain's just going to kind of freak out a little bit. Mm-hmm. And when we see that happening and bring awareness to it, and we can see like when a thought goes by that says like, no, don't go the other way to work. Like we know where to go. Like you don't have to think that hard. You don't have to try. And it comes in such sneaky ways. Exactly like I just said, like you don't have to try that hard. It's not worth it. Like just stay. It's easy and comfortable here. Right. And so it isn't always like a big terrifying thing. That resistance will creep in just such little ways that's why we stay stuck where we are, because we don't say, well, no, I don't care if it's comfortable here. Like I'm ready to do something different. And that's like those massive light bulb moments where people make the decision. That's what they're making the decision against, to tell their brain to be quiet and just keep going. So it happens just because that's kind of how we're wired. We like that comfort zone, those patterns that we don't have to think too hard or worry too much. And so when we want to create something different, our brain just kind of goes a little bit haywire.
Yeah, and I think we're so used to being our old selves that often we oversee it, and only looking backward, it's like, this was this thing again. Okay. Tomorrow, I mean, in the positive sense, tomorrow is a better day because now I have more awareness and I can do it better the next time. But while you were speaking, I was thinking, when we envision our new self and how we are, and we start feeling like and being like our new self, I think something that sometimes creeps in quite badly is the fear of being seen as who we are, as our future and better version of ourselves. This feeling of being so vulnerable, this feeling of I might lose relationships, I might not be anymore seen as normal, I might fail and be totally ridiculous. I mean, I guess you are hearing a lot of these things. So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, that is kind of like an unintended side effect, I think, of like us really stepping out into the person that we are. I think we are taught from a very young age to like hold back, to dim ourselves. You think about even when we're a kid, like if we're like a loud, rambunctious, like tons of energy kind of child, we're like a wild child, right? Like think about what we were probably told. We're like, be quiet, use your indoor voice, like calm down, right? And so even just something as little as that tells us that who we are is not the best or is good, right? And so we are taught from the beginning that like, don't be who you are or people aren't going to like you. You're not going to be accepted. You're not going to be loved. And that comes from, you know, again, caveman days of when you had to be with your tribe to survive. So of course we don't want to push through that and be seen and be kicked out of the tribe, right? We want the love and acceptance and survival. But we're in a space now where we can go find our own tribe. Like we can go make our own rules. And this is what happens. Like relationships absolutely will fall away when we start to step in and like who we are, like, hey, this is me. And like, I can't keep hiding it to make you feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. And so we have to understand that it's not that it's because we are bad or the way we are is wrong. Because when we start to show up as the full, true version of ourselves, our tribe finds us, and they actually can find us because now we're speaking the way that they speak, and we're, you know, drawing them in by showing up. But the people who don't really resonate with us, like you think about, do you want someone in your life that you have to constantly like hide and dim yourself to make them feel comfortable just so they'll stick around, right? Like it means that they don't actually align with the true you, and that's okay. They're just not your people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you can start to accept that some people will fall away, and that's definitely happened in my life, but I've also brought in like so many more just incredible people, clients, you know, people like you into this space who like we can connect and have like a real conversation, and there's no judgment. I can be as real as I want with you, right?
Yeah.
Like this is me. I'm not going to hide anything about who I am. And we're going to have this incredible connection, right? And like that is where the magic lies, is these connections with people, and just to be able to be accepted when you are your true self. There's no feeling like that, right? And like this is where we're craving so much connection, but we're not opening ourselves up to it. Like we're trying to be like, love me because I'm this way, love me because I'm this way, right? Instead of just saying, this is who I am, and letting the people who really love the true us come in. And when you have those kind of connections, it's incredible. So yeah, there's definitely a fear, but when we start to let that go and can move through it, we open the doors to just such better connections, and it's amazing. So
yeah, I experienced the same. And I don't know what's your take on it, but I saw in my life that when I really intentionally go out into the world and find people for conversations, potential new friends that fit to my better and future self, this is so incredibly helpful because these people can see you as who you are.
yeah,
And it's so different from people you've lived with maybe for 20, 30 or even more years, because they just are so used to who you have been, and they kind of expect you to stay the same. Yeah,
totally.
and there's another facet of change that I wanted to hear your opinion about, and we've talked a little bit about it, kind of, and that's procrastination. Because procrastination is a weird thing. It seems like being not interested in change. It seems like doing everything not to change, but I think it's not just putting things off. It's because we are worried about what might happen if we do something, and so on. So I believe many people beat themselves up for procrastination and would like to lose that. But so what is that phenomenon for you, and how would you say, can we kindly deal with that thing?
Yeah. So I think there's two things about it. The first is that procrastination is a form of resistance. So it's our brain just saying like I said earlier, like, oh, that's not, you don't have to worry about that. It's not really a big deal. Like, don't do it now. You can always do it later. It's a form of resistance in our brain and our ego trying to keep us safe in our comfort zone. So that's the first thing about it. Excuse me. The second thing I see is that a lot of people use the excuse, like, I don't have enough time. And so they use that as their excuse for putting things off, right? But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, it's a fear-based thing.
Yeah.
It absolutely is, because we always make time for what's important to us, right? Like, you think about, you know, you're crazy busy in your day-to-day life, and then something, you know, God forbid, tragic happens in your family and you need to like fly home and whatever, like, you make time for it, you figure it out, right? There's always a way. And this is what happens when it's our priority, like, there's always a way. But we're scared of, and in most cases, it's not we're scared of like taking the action. We're scared of that being seen and like stepping into the next level version of ourselves, because that's what it means to take that action. So whatever it is, if it's like even just like doing a live video, sometimes it's like, we put it off, we put it off, we put it off. But it's really just because it's like we're scared of like the amazing results that can come from it, which is so crazy, you know, to see that like we know it's going to do something good for us, but we hold it back because we're like, this means it's real. It's uncomfortable. And our brain's telling us like, you can always do it, you know, some other time. Right. And so it's really just being aware and like looking and saying like, what is it that I'm putting off? And why am I putting it off? Because I think when you're really in tune with your intuition and you know the things that you're resisting the most and you're putting off and procrastinating on are usually the thing that's going to take you to that next level, that's going to like open the doors, you know, and create this magical stuff, right? And so you just, this is when you like take that scary 5 seconds of courage and you just do it, right? And then this is when you start accumulating evidence of just like how much of a badass you are. And you accumulate that evidence that you already are the person that you're envisioning that you are. Yeah. So, I think procrastinating is just, it's a form of resistance and bringing awareness to it. And just like, okay, dive in, right? It's like diving into the cold water. Just do it and it's over. And then you feel better afterwards.
Yeah, you are so right.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a lot now about those voices that we have in our head. And there's this other voice that most of all call intuition or inner guidance. And I would like to talk a little bit about that voice that sometimes seems to be so silent, but actually can speak so clearly. And there's one thing I would like to know your opinion on, and is there, I think there is something that can easily be like misunderstood as intuition, and that is a very spontaneous, quick, and strong gut feeling that stems more from negative beliefs. Like, this is not my thing, I'm not going to do this. But it might actually be the thing. So how do you discern between these two things so that the inner guidance system actually can really be applied and followed?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, because I think we have such a hard time like figuring out what's real. And I actually remember when I first started with my coach, like a month or so in, I was like, now I'm questioning every thought I'm having, if it's real or if it's wrong belief. Like, I thought I was losing my mind. And she's like, no, this is just part of the process. And so I think, number one, like when we're first, if we've never like quieted our minds and listened into what's happening inside of us and what that inner guidance sounds like we don't know what she sounds like. We don't know what she's trying to say, right? And so we do start to question. We go through that space of like, is this real? Am I just scared? Is this a limiting belief? Is it, whatever? I think most of the time when you have that instant like gut feel of like, like that lurch of like, oh no, it's bad. That's fear-based. It's totally fear-based, right? Because if you actually like quieted and sat and thought, like, do I really want the result of what this action is going to give me? The answer is probably yes. And we're just like, our body's like reacting to the fear, right? So it's like that fight or flight kind of, we get this jolt of adrenaline. And so one thing that really worked for me was reframing fear into excitement, because it's literally the same in our bodies. We get the sweaty hands, we're like, ah, right? And it's like, we've got it in our gut, we've got it in our chest. But it's the same thing. If you really think about it, when we're scared, it's the same thing as excitement. So if you reframe it, like, I'm excited to do this, I'm excited to do this, and you start reframing it that way, when we're taking like a scary, uncomfortable action, then we're like, oh, okay, this is good. I'm excited to do it. It's going to give me something, a good result. When it comes to our intuition, it can come in an instant, right? Like, so it happens to me sometimes. For the way it works for me is I just get like, it's like someone like implanted a thought, and I can like hear the sentence kind of in my mind. Some people see it through pictures. Some people see it through a feeling in their body, color. Like, people see and feel their intuition in any sort of way. But it really is this mind-body connection. And so I think a huge piece of that is obviously, meditating, but not in a way just to like silence your mind and look at your thoughts. It's to get into that space of like your cosmic connection, your universal connection, your connection to God, whatever your word is, and understanding that those messages coming through, that's what that is. So when people are quieting their mind and just allowing the space for that to open and to listen, that's when those messages start to drop in, right? And you're really listening. And so usually our intuition is telling us to do something that's like scary and super weird and uncomfortable. But the more we follow it and the more we tune in, like, this is when you start to create that like wholeness and understanding of who you are and that peace in who you are, because you're listening to your inner guidance system like each and every day, in every moment, right? It's like, well, what do I want to eat today? How do I want to move this body, right? And if you feel into your body, because I just had this experience the other day, I'm launching a new program, and I ended up deciding that I wanted to launch it slightly different, and it meant like extending it out, bringing more people in, and changing the pricing and all of this. And I was kind of like, is this resistance? And so I go through all the time, this same process. Like, is this resistance to me not, being scared of what this is going to give me? Is this an old pattern, or is it really my gut telling me this is a better way for you to do it, and you're going to enjoy it more, and it's more aligned, right? And so what happened is I let go of because we get it spinning in our brain, and we're like, what do I do? What do I do? What's right? What's the right answer? Right? But when you just quiet that and you feel it in your body, and I felt excited, like I could feel that excitement about the new version of the way I wanted to do it. And I was like, yes, like your body is just like, yes, like if you just get that yes in your whole being, then right? And so you get out of your head, get into your body, get grounded. Like, you can meditate and do that in like a minute and get your answer. And there is no right or wrong. It's like whatever's right for you, whatever feels right for you, because that's what you put your energy behind. If you're excited and your body's saying yes, like that's what you align and put everything behind and just go for it, right? And that's what attracts people to you and brings in clients and, just calls people into your energy field, like when you're in that high vibe kind of space. But if you're saying, no, it's resistance, I'm freaking out, and you try to push, force, and hustle your way through it, like literally nothing happens. And this is why we don't achieve those goals, and then we feel like crap about ourselves because we just didn't listen, right? But it's all an experiment. We listen, we sometimes don't. There's always a lesson in everything. So it's like, you can't do life wrong, right? You just can't do it wrong.
Just live it.
Yeah, see what you can get away with.
Speaking of that high vibe, when I imagine my future self, it's some kind of, say, maybe technically upgraded version of me, or a Nina 2.0 or so. And when I feel into it, it lives always on a more elevated state, or maybe we could call it vibration. It's more filled with things like joy, gratitude, enthusiasm, excitement, courage, and all those things. And when we try to or go for creating this future, it's so important, like we said before, to be in those elevated states, even though maybe the outer appearance has not happened yet. So my question is, what do you do and what do you recommend to get in those elevated states, especially in those moments where you feel not happy, but very crappy?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing, and I say this a lot, is just awareness. And I think you can cultivate that through things like meditation. I've recently started experimenting more with that mind-body connection. So not just like yoga and moving my body, but things like dancing and like connecting to my feminine energy center and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways, and you have to kind of feel into what works for you. So whether it's meditation, but this is where you can bring in your intuition and say, like, what do I really want to do right now? If you ask yourself that, your body's going to tell you, I want to go to the beach. I want to take a hot bath. I want to have a glass of wine. I want to go for a run. I want, your body will like tell you what it wants, right? And that's what brings you back to center. And so I think the biggest thing to really realize is that highest version of you that you're seeing, like you are her already at your core, right? Like she is already in you. You already have her there. And what has happened is our conditioning, our programming has like built up these walls and these layers like an onion, right? And so as we go through this growth experience, we're like peeling back layer by layer by layer. So you're like closer and closer to her. You're like, I can see her, I can feel her, right? Yeah. And so it's like looking at when you see that version of you that has the incredible business, that has the incredible, marriage or relationship, that, is a certain body type, whatever it is that you see, and you kind of, you can feel into that and just be like, what does she do? What does she do today when she's feeling this way? And I think when you are in a moment of like frustration or feeling like yucky, or, cause we get those like dark times, I think number one, like allowing yourself to feel it, because we're human, like we have a human experience, and we are not meant to feel like I'm on top of the world 100% of the time, right? Like that's why we have emotions and we feel, and especially as women, we were meant to feel. We were meant to feel. And so allow yourself to feel it, but don't get stuck in it. Right? Like you get to choose how much you want to like wallow in it. Right? And so when you say, okay, I felt it, I see where this is, I see where it's coming from, and kind of can separate a little bit from it, not stuff it down, but separate and say, do I want to continue being in this space? Have I processed? Am I ready to go and move forward, right? And then that's when you start doing things like going to the beach, taking a hot bath, like little things like that. It's like nurturing yourself and just knowing that at your core, whatever the incident happened that made you feel that way does not change anything about you. Then you can really just keep stepping into that high vibe and keep like moving yourself forward. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think it's so important to keep it in mind and to remember it in those not so beautiful times, because sometimes when we feel low and down, we tend to forget many things we actually know.
Yeah. And we stop doing the things that make us feel good. Right. You think about when you're like, in a crappy mood, you're mad, whatever, you're like, you reach for the chocolate, you stop exercising, you're like, I'm not worthy of taking a hot bath for myself, right? So we tell ourselves all these like BS lies But as soon as we decide that like we're no longer available to stay in that space, it's okay to get there. We're people, we feel, we get low, right? But as soon as we say, I'm no longer available to stay in this space for longer than I need to just process the feeling and move on, I'm going to keep doing the things that feel good, right? Even when I don't want to, even when I like feel like crying through a yoga class, right? Like just do it anyway. And it's going to shift you and move you to the space where you feel like yourself again. So, yeah.
Yeah. So for all those people who are watching right now and are thinking, hey, I would like to know so much more about Robyn. I would like to work with her. I would like to know what she offers. So what are those things and how can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually in the process of a website revamp right now, but my website is just www.robynchavarie.com. And so all of my offers and things like that will be up there at any given time. And most of the time when I work with my clients, I do like either group programs or one-to-one. So I actually like to have calls with any potential clients who are looking for support. I like to have a call with them and really like understand who they are, you know, what they're looking for support with, and make sure that we're both a good fit to work together, right? And that we're on that same vibration, and I know that I can help them. For me, it's not just about bringing in a volume of people. It's like really knowing and doing the work that I love with people who are open and receptive to that shift.
Yes.
And so, so there's a place on my website where you can book a call with me. And I do have a few online courses and things like that, but really like my focus with my clients is, I work with a lot of women who are in the online service space, building businesses in that way. And really like looking to find their purpose. Like that's really it. Right. And then taking that work and turning it into their dream business and into their dream life that they're constantly thinking about, but aren't really sure kind of where to go or how to create that. So the first thing we do, and in the first couple of sessions, it's really like healing and alignment. So we were doing meditations. We're like cracking open the like ugly stuff that nobody wants to look at, because that's what's holding you back. That's always what's holding us back, right? There's no rules. There's no, that person's more successful because they're better, more talented, or learned more, or whatever. Like it's always, we have limiting beliefs holding us back, because we can learn anything we need to. We can hire someone to help us. We can do all of these things, right, to create the success that we want. But if there's this thought in our brain saying, well, you can't do that, you're not worthy of it, that's not who you are, right? Like all of these thoughts, then we never take the action to move forward. So that's the first thing I do, is really helping you understand your patterns, what's coming up for you, so that you can see it and like stop it in its tracks. And then we go into things like looking at what your unique gifts are, how you want to show up in the world, because you don't have to build your business the same way that everyone else is. And typically that's why it's not working in the first place, because you're trying to build it the same way, right? And so for me, like I don't give women a cookie cutter approach to, or some sort of blueprint, like this is exactly how I did it, right? Because that's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for my clients. And we are all so different, and we want to show up in our business different ways, and we want to connect with people different ways, and we use different platforms. And so it's really about that clarity on how do you want to do it, right? And so we walk through that process, and then we look at your marketing, your strategy, how you bring clients or paying people into your space, how you attract your tribe. Is it through a sales funnel, a Facebook group, link, like whatever it is that you have happening, how do you bring those people into your space? And then how do you sell from a place of service instead of that like desperation, I got to make money, I got to hit a goal space, which turns into icky manipulative sales that everyone hates, right? Like my sales conversations with my clients are just like we are so aligned. You're looking for support. I have the thing to help you. And so like, how can we make this work together? And this is what I have available. So it's always a very loving, service-based conversation. Because, you know, like I'm not going to just bring someone into the space that I can't help. There's no, that's not fun. It's like more energy for me, and it's like hitting up against a brick wall. And so that's actually why I have the calls, because I turn clients away sometimes, right? And it's like, no, we're not the right fit. I don't have the right thing to help you. And it's nothing against them or me, but it's like, how can we just make sure that we are the right fit for me to pull you through that next transformation? And so investing in ourselves is really, it's like, you can do it on your own, but you don't have to, right? And there's always something about having someone else outside of you to say, well, I think there's a limiting belief there. Let's dive in deeper. And it's like looking at that uncomfortable thing that's like, oh, I don't want to look at it, right? Those are the things that are holding us back. And that's what a coach is going to be able to pull out of you and say, it's safe to go further. It's safe to go further, right? And so that's really what I do, is like, I see the highest version of you and I just help you get there by listening to your intuition, by, you know, doing those things, by dancing in the morning if you want. Right? And so like you can build a business doing that kind of stuff, and it's just, it's incredible. And it's, you know, that's really been my journey. So yeah. So anyone who is in that space looking to find their purpose and looking to really grow their online service-based business in a way that feels aligned and like want to do it their way, so they're not constantly feeling that force and that they're, you know, just trying to push and drive and hustle things through. Like, it just doesn't have to feel that way. You can do it in flow, and you can do it with ease, and you can do the things you love and make money at the same time. And there's nothing better than that.
Yeah. You said that so beautifully. It's almost hard to add something to it, but I can really say from my own experience that working with a coach and or a mentor is just incredibly valuable. And we will link to your website, to your social media channels, to everything that's important below this interview, so everybody can find you. And I think we are at a beautiful place to close this conversation, but I don't want to do it before asking you, is there anything we forgot? Is there anything important you wanted to add?
Let's see, that's a good question. I think I've been kind of on this kick lately where I found myself saying that your purpose isn't a job title or a brand or, you know, a business name. It's not outside of you. And your purpose really is to show up as the truest and highest version of yourself each and every day. And when you do that and you listen to your intuition and you take chances and you move through the fear, like, you really, truly can create whatever it is that you want to create in this world. And it doesn't have to be somebody else's dream or finances or relationship. Like, what is the thing that you want to create? And by doing this each and every day, like, this is when we show up with the most amount of joy and fun and pleasure and allow ourselves to receive that in our lives. And it's just like, that's how you live your fullest life. So I would say that's my final message for anyone listening. And I just thank you so much for having me and doing this interview. And it's been such an awesome time, like, just connecting and chatting with you over the last few months. And
yeah,
incredible.
It feels a lot longer than it actually has been, I think.
I know. Like, yeah, I feel like I've known you forever.
Yeah. And yes, thank you for sharing this space and this time with me. I'm very happy about it.
Awesome.
So, bye everybody, and always remember to take the driver's seat of the car called your life and to create this lifetime, your lifetime, to your taste. It's our pleasure here at Mind Gourmet to support you with our food for thought. Bye everybody.
Bye.